Star Trek Prodigy just dropped its sixth episode after going on break. It's finally back. Thank God I missed the show. I'm enjoying Discovery Season 4, but this show is my number one favorite new Star Trek show. Like, if we're talking, older Trek, it's probably Next Generation. That one's my favorite. Always has been. But, if we're talking old school Star Trek, Next Generation is my favorite. But new shows, this is my absolute favorite. And this episode has a lot of great cameos in it. So we're going to dive into spoilers. I recommend watching this episode first because it's great. I recommend watching all the previous episodes as well because it's a fantastic show. This episode continues off where we left last time where, our crew's still getting adjusted to each other. They're kind of closer than they were because, we went through that event on that one planet and they saved each other and stuff. So we're closer than we were before, but they're working as a team better now, but they're still not quite working together probably as well as they should be, but they're figuring it out. And they're just working through the kinks, becoming a newly acquainted crew, not by choice. So in this episode, our characters are debating on going to Starfleet, which is a debate they keep having. And I don't think it's going to happen till the final episode of this season. I think we're going to get to a point where the characters are going to have to go there, but I think it's something they're saving for the final episode. But meanwhile, we have a plot where, our main evil bad guy girl, we find out, she's a clone, which was really shocking. But I was like, oh, she's a clone. Yikes. Which is funny because she says a line earlier in this episode saying how her and her dad are the last two of her species left. But I guess they're really just the last one of her species because she's a clone of her dad. Just female, which is... I don't know. Why would he choose to make her a female? Nothing against her being a female, but it's just really funny because you think, someone who's evil as this guy seems to be, he'd be more sexist. And he would probably, make her a male just to be, an asshole. I don't know. I feel like that's something that would happen, but whatever. But she, which is weird how that flashback was just placed in this episode. I found that really awkward. It felt like it should have been written into the season later and not really like a flashback in this episode because it really served nothing to the story in this episode. Just randomly appeared in this episode. It was like, oh, she's a clone now. And I'm like, cool. Makes sense. There's no issue there. It's just awkward the way it's placed into the episode. But it's still a good episode. And so after that flashback, our characters are just trying to, the main evil girl and Robot and Janeway are trying to figure out why her dad, chose the ship over her, and they're doing some investigation. And at the end of this episode, Janeway realizes that our crew on the ship wasn't her original crew, and there's been some hidden information deep down within the ship, and that's pretty damn good cliffhanger. All the other episodes had good cliffhangers, but this is the one that I'm like, alright, I'm invested in where this episode's going. Also, what it does with our main kid character, who, he tries out this training simulator, and it's really cool because he's going through the simulator, he keeps failing, and at the end of it, he asks the system, how was he supposed to win the simulator? And he realizes that the simulator tells him, oh, you were never going to win. The point of the simulator was to show how a captain would react to a situation that you're never going to win. And it also allowed us to get some great cameos like Scotty, Irma, or I think it's Irma. I forget her name, how to say her name, but we got Spock, and I think Spock was actually voiced by Leonard Nimoy, which I think it was because the audio sounded like it was taken out of the 60s show and some of the older movies, and it didn't really sound new and current, which is fine, which I didn't mind because while it felt a little bit awkward, it's it was a simulation, so it didn't really matter too much. You already set up that this is kind of a robot, not real. So it was okay, but it was like awkward in this episode a little bit because it's like it just sounded off. But I think that's probably why. And I don't blame them for not wanting to recast Leonard Nimoy. And of course, they dedicated, the episode to some of the cast members that they used in this episode who had passed away, and I think that was really sweet. And it was a really good episode. I'm really now. I'm saying last 5 episodes were good. They did a good job kind of setting up what type of show this is, getting you introduce our characters. This is doing a good job of getting you hooked and wanting to watch more and see where the story goes. And I'm really excited to see what happens. Though I think end of the season we're going to the Federation. That's all I'm going to say. I would be mad if we don't. I feel like a season 2 of them still debating whether or not they go to the Federation would be nonsense. And I think it's best that by the end of the season they go to the Federation and we to see what happens from there. And I'm excited to see what happens. I'm really excited to see what happens in the show. I'm super invested in these characters at this point, and I really like the trajectory we're headed in. It seems really cool. So that's my thoughts on this episode. You guys can let me know your thoughts, like, share, and subscribe. See you guys next time, and I'll talk to you guys later.